Take 75. Around the 412 Fantasy Football Show, episode number 2. We're going to try this again. We're going to keep trying if it doesn't work. But yeah, we are dealing with absolute hell today over here. I don't know what's going on. This was not happening for us before. But anyway, we're going to try to do this again. I really don't have much to say other than let's just jump into it because we're going to be repeating ourselves if anybody wasn't here the first time, just because we have to now. So, where did we start off? 2018 recap. So once again, if you are in here, you've probably already heard some of the stuff that we're going to say, but you're going to get to hear it a second time. So you're welcome. Twice is nice, they say. So, obviously, like you said, jumps off the page. The first thing, Pat Mahomes, coming in originally double digits. He finishes as QB1, obviously. Last year, ridiculous season, throwing for over 5,000 yards and 50 touchdowns. But you look at the top three, and it was going into the last year. Him, Rodgers, and who was Tom Brady. So it was Rodgers, Tom Brady, Newton, 1, 2, 3, and none of those three finish in the top three. It ends up being Mahomes, Matt Ryan, and Big Ben. So obviously, and then you look at the running backs, and Le'Veon Bell did not have one single touch last year. Showed up as the number one running back going into the season. So Yeah. And there obviously, some people felt he was worth the risk of taking him. Is he actually going to sit out a game? We kind of knew going into the draft that he wasn't going to be there for the preseason, but people thought he would report to the team before the start of the season, and maybe he would have, a little bit of a lull, similar to the previous season, the first couple weeks getting back to it, but nobody expected him, I don't think, to not play at all. And now that it's set... Go ahead. Interesting. So, okay, this is not good. Again, looking at the comments, Herb said we need a running gag of Donnie in a different room every episode. But Herb also said that he can't hear you. Which I'm not aware of that being the case because it's desktop audio. It's picking up. I don't know. Keep talking, and we'll see if somebody in the chat can help us out and let us know. Chat, are you still not able to hear Donnie? Maybe that will work. Maybe if you start talking in Spanish. I'm not sure what could possibly be the issue there because that wasn't an issue. I don't know. keep talking.
Yeah. So, speaking of Steelers running backs, James Conner, running back at 30, finished as RB6 to end 2018. So stepping up in Le'Veon Bell's absence, getting the 400 plus touch layover that Le'Veon Bell left, definitely kind of picked up where Bell left off in terms of production.
All right, we're good.
I wouldn't say he's as efficient as Le'Veon Bell, just in terms of catching the ball and running with it. But Connor definitely stepped up, and like what a value! He's ranked the 30th running back in 2018 going into the season, and he finishes as a top 6 running back. So I think you can ask for a better value than that.
Yeah. So real quick, I do want to say for anybody that wasn't able to hear Donnie at the beginning, he really hadn't said much yet because I was just saying about Mahomes and Le'Veon Bell, Todd Gurley, David Johnson, those kind of things. Donnie hadn't said much yet, thank God. But the issue was, for some reason, when I plugged my microphone in, it was trying to put his audio through the microphone, which isn't possible, so it had no desktop audio. But we're good now.
For sure. I was actually talking in Spanish, so it's probably a good thing that nobody heard me.
Right. But anyway, we wanted to kick off the show with like a little bit of a 2018 recap. So as we said, top 3 quarterbacks going into last season, pre-draft, did not finish in the top 3. The top 3 running backs. Where did Todd Gurley finish among running backs, actually?
Where did he finish in 2018?
Yes. Because obviously we know what happened, in the playoff run. Okay, he did still finish.
Todd Gurley, RB1.
Yeah, okay. So he did still finish. The regular season was fine. That wasn't the issue. If you're fantasy owner, you don't care what happened in the playoffs. But obviously with what happened in the playoffs, his 2019 stock took a little bit of a hit. With the arthritis in the knees as well, obviously that's not just going to go away. And they did draft another running back as well. So you look at ESPN's 2019 fantasy football cheat sheet, and he comes in now as RB7. That would not be the case if not for those knee concerns.
Oh yeah, he would undoubtedly, I think, be the at least a top 3 pick. If it wasn't for the knee concerns and the arthritis coming through. Gurley actually missed 2 games in the regular season last year, I believe. I know he missed championship week 15 or 16 for fantasy owners. I'm pretty sure that's how I won my championship last year, because the guy I was facing, he didn't have Todd Gurley.
And I had Todd Gurley.
Ooh. I'm sorry, man. Yikes, hard lemonade.
So, 2018, the last thing that I kind of wanted to touch on was the tight end, because Eric Ebron was not considered to be. I mean, Jack Doyle was rated in the top 10 for tight ends going into last year. Like, he was supposed to be the number 1 tight end in Indy. Andrew Luck found himself a diamond in the rough in Eric Ebron, and Eric Ebron ended up scoring double-digit touchdowns last year. So, he came in, on most people's lists, he was in the 20s, Eric Ebron.
Minimum. Yeah, very, very minimum. When you think about fantasy football, you think about shit that'll like never happen again, and Eric Ebron catching that amount of touchdowns will probably never happen again. At least for like projecting for 2019, I have no idea how he's going to be able to do that again.
Right, and people are with you on that, because you look at ESPN's fantasy football cheat sheet for 2019, and he still doesn't crack the top 10. He comes in at number 11 after scoring double-digit touchdowns last year. So people are expecting some pretty decent regression there for that to be the case. I'm a little bit higher on him than that, just because I feel like the talent was there. I mean, come on, he was a top 10 pick with the Lions. It just didn't come to fruition. I think that him and Andrew Luck together have a very good rapport. The question is Andrew Luck's health. That's always the question, it seems like. Now, with the calf issue, they think he's going to be ready for week 1, but it's Andrew Luck. We can't necessarily just put that in pen. I would write that in pencil.
Yeah, some people are saying that Luck might take preventative caution and just not play week 1. So we'll kind of wait and see with that situation. But I feel like there's always something with Andrew Luck in terms of just like being hurt. It's I don't know. It's kind of it's so hit or miss with Luck, because you don't trust backup quarterbacks to replace the production of a like starting quarterback, especially a guy like Andrew Luck. So let's say Luck gets hurt, like he has shown in the past, and he doesn't play a handful of games in 2019. Where does that leave Ebron's value? You need that guy who can put the ball up high for Ebron and go and grab in the end zone like he did, because he caught double-digit touchdowns last year, didn't he?
Yes.
Okay. you need a guy to know Ebron. You need a guy that will put the ball in the right places for him. And outside of Andrew Luck and Indy, they don't have that.
No. That's a hit to the entire offense, I would think. If Andrew Luck goes down, you look at T.Y. Hilton, who right now, let's take a look at the 2019 sheet, comes in at wide receiver 11 to begin the season. He's not coming close to that value if he doesn't have Andrew Luck.
Completely agree.
Okay, so just a little bit of a recap there. What do we got next?
So our personal best and worst picks in our fantasy careers.
Okay. Yeah. So two come to mind for me. So the first fantasy football league that I did, I was 8 years old. So it was 2003, all the way back to 2003. And I took Randy Moss, who that season played with the Raiders.
Ooh.
Did not pan out well for me. Luckily, the rest of my team actually was very good. I had Brett Favre on that team. I had Priest Holmes. And I ended up winning the championship the first year that I did fantasy football at 8 years old.
Smitty, you built an NFL street team.
And then just a couple years ago, I took David Johnson #1 in a league, which obviously that didn't pan out for me that year. That was actually the year where he dislocated his wrist. So that happened in game 1. He didn't end up coming back.
Very first game. Yeah. So, what's crazy is that he was having a monster game too before that happened.
Yeah. And that's a little bit of a different scenario because it was an injury. I don't know if anybody else is like me, but when you get snake bitten by a player like that, and like I said, it wasn't his fault, you're just reluctant to take them again.
That's me with T.Y. Hilton every year. T.Y. was either hurt or super consistent the 1 year I had him, so I avoid him at all costs.
So Sarge put in here, I know he's very interested in this topic. I actually wanted to put this in here because of him. He was telling me about, he drafted a fantastic team and it didn't end up panning out. He picked up Marlon Mack on waivers last year and it worked out very well down the stretch. What's the earliest you would pick him up this year? Stubbs said on waivers again. Now, Marlon Mack, it's tough because it's an indie running back. It's one of those running back situations where it just seems like it's like a revolving door. They could go hot hand approach. Marlon Mack coming into this draft, on ESPN at least, is at RB18. I think I actually would think of him a little bit higher than that. Not too much, but I think that I would be okay with him being in a starting roster, whether it be an RB2 or a flex. At least going into the season. Now, once again, because it's Indianapolis, something could change there, and Nyheim Hines could end up being their lead back. But I do like Marlon Mack a lot, at least going into the season. Obviously, things can change, but I would feel very comfortable with rostering him as an RB2, or if you already have two guys and he's still sitting there, that's a pretty good flex going into the season.
Definitely, yeah, and that's kind of the concern people have with Marlon Mack in Indianapolis, and it's a very valid one. Nyheim Hines kind of being there to play that pass catcher role, limiting his upside in PPR formats. But you look at the potential workload he can get with or without Andrew Luck. I still feel like he can hit 20 to 25 touches a game. I had my draft 2 days ago. I was lucky to have Alvin Kamara and Ezekiel Elliott as my top 2 running backs, and I believe I drafted Marlon Mack probably 6th or 7th round. So I feel comfortable taking him there. Mm-hmm. Worst comes to worst, you can plug him in at the flex spot, like Smitty said, especially in standard leagues too. Since Mac doesn't get a whole lot of PPR work. But I would say if you go zero running back strategy and you just take all wide receivers rounds 1 through 5, it's like having Marlon Mack as a starting running back isn't a big problem. I feel like if that's your worst kind of conundrum with your fantasy team, I feel like you're doing okay.
Yeah. It is interesting for you to bring up the luck point because we've already kind of talked about that for Ebron and Hilton's value, but how will it affect the running backs? And I think for Marlon Mack, obviously, that would not be beneficial because, you're going to see teams stacked in the box that they can't pass as much, but it kind of takes away Nyheim Hines' value in that you don't have Luck throwing him the ball, so Marlon Mack could end up being, the touch monster there because of that.
Definitely, yeah.
So there's Marlon Mack. Sarge, I did miss this. He also said, okay, so real talk, what do we do about Zeke at this point? You just mentioned that you drafted Zeke. So
I did, yeah. Well,
I'll let you start
actually
with
kept
that.
him. We're in a keeper league, so I brought him over from 2018. But still, regardless, I'm banking on him just as much as the guy who takes him in the first round of their fantasy draft. Everything looks like fine as far as his situation goes. I don't expect him to not play any games, but then again, not miss any games. But then again, we expect the same thing out of Le'Veon Bell. So we're not close to Zeke. We don't have sources within his situation knowing what's going on. He came out and said that he wasn't going to play without a new contract. There were rumors going around that the Cowboys had offered substantial contracts to both Dak Prescott, Ezekiel Elliott, and Amari Cooper, and they all turned him down and said no. So we'll see. I feel like when we talked about this in the last episode, I feel like it wouldn't be wise for Zeke, or even if you want to lump Melvin Gordon into this, is to shut out the year, just because they won't accrue another year on their contract if they don't play. So the situation they're currently in right now, if they don't play, they're just going to be in for 2020. Yeah. It's not the smartest of ideas to show up. Now, granted, what they could possibly do is they could show up at the end of November, and they could still play their 10 games to accrue it as a full year for the contract moving forward. So that is a little bit concerning, but I feel like that's absolute worst case scenario. And if you get one of the best running backs in football for 10 games, I think you have to take that, especially down that playoff stretch in fantasy football where you're going to need him for the end of the year. I feel like it's going to be vital. So if you absolutely want, we talked about fantasy handcuffs last week as well. Mm-hmm. So Tony Pollard was one of the guys we mentioned. I took Marlon Mack in the 7th round of my draft just to make sure if Zeke didn't play, I still have a sustainable running back to plug in the lineup.
Yeah. I think it's more about. I think if Zeke's there, you have to take Zeke. It's more about how you draft him once you take him.
Yeah,
that's the important thing. You're not gonna win or lose your league at your draft. It's about how you handle the situations after. The waiver wire, the trades that you make.
Oh, yep. Exactly. Yep. Like Matthew Berry says, you don't win your fantasy league in round 1, but you can lose it.
Yes.
So it just all depends on how the chips fall for you and what you decide to do with your team. Exactly what you said, Smitty.
Yeah. A couple more things in the chat. Herb said double duty for Smitty today. That is true. We are recording our regular show later tonight after my fantasy draft that takes place at 5:00. The first one that I'm getting to do. And Sarge said, Donnie, I know you're in a keeper league, as we've talked about. And Smitty, and he knows Smitty, that'd be me, is pretty against them. Are you pro keeper league, or is the league you're in just one and you have no control over it?
Yeah, so it's just one keeper league that I'm in, and it's only one keeper that we get to bring from the previous year, and we can't keep them more than 2 years in a row. So, for example, I kept Zeke for this year, so after this year, I can't keep him anymore. I have to pick a new player for my roster to do so. I kind of like it. It's a little bit of an upgrade for me in terms of just redraft leagues. I hate dynasty leagues. I hate people who – I don't hate people. I dislike people who play in dynasty leagues that think they are, God's second gift to the world.
That's their job. That's their career.
Just because they have – the same roster year in, year out. I'm one of those guys to where if I have a garbage year fantasy-wise, I just want to hit the refresh button. And so keeper leagues add a little bit more strategy to things, especially leagues where if you have to give up a pick for where you took them, for example, I would have to give up my first-round pick if I took Zeke, if that's how our league work. I know a lot of keeper leagues work like that, but I like it a lot. I would say it's my favorite.
Yeah, and I mean, so I guess my thing with them is I just enjoy everybody being available. Yeah. I get the idea behind wanting to be in a keeper league and everything like that. I like, well, I mean, I can just reiterate it again. I just like the entire draft pool being available. So you kept Zeke, so he's not available in draft. No one to draft him.
Right.
Which for me, I would just prefer to do a redraft every single year. So that's kind of where I'm at. But anyway. I would definitely do a keeper league before a dynasty one, as you just mentioned. But
yeah, definitely. It's a maximum of 8 to 10 players not available, and I know it's kind of substantial, but in the league I'm in, like I was talking to you before we started recording, there's draft pick trading. You're available to trade for other people's keepers. So there's a whole bunch of strategy that goes into the keeper league I'm currently in.
Yeah. Not as much strategy as our boy Tyler's league that we are still trying to wrap our heads around. But he's not in the chat yet. If he comes in here, we have to talk about that a little bit more. But
talk about Beefy.
No, the Tyler Hurnley that's in that league.
Yeah, Tyler, dude, get out. There's still time. There's still time. Get out of that league, man.
All right. So what do we got next?
Before we move on, I just wanted to give my personal best works pick. Super quickly. I don't have a whole bunch.
Yeah.
So last year I took Mahomes in the very last round of the draft.
Yeah.
And obviously that ended up paying dividends for me. I took Peyton Manning in the 4th round of the year he was with Denver, and he set all of those quarterback records. I drafted Calvin Johnson the year he almost hit 2,000 yards. Last year I picked James Conner up off of waivers 3 days before week 1 because I had a little feeling that Le'Veon wasn't going to show. And thank God.
3 days beforehand, yeah. I'm surprised he was still there 3 days beforehand, but
yeah. My worst picks, I took Alfred Morris in the 1st round of our draft in 2013. Terrible pick, garbage. And then 2 years ago, I took Danny Woodhead in the 5th round, and then a week later he got hurt. So I don't have the best luck whenever it comes to drafting mid-round running backs, but whatever. Just a quick summary.
Yeah, I got Alvin Kamara off waivers 2 years ago. And what that gave me a running back situation of Le'Veon, Zeke, him, Devontae Freeman, and Jordan Howard. Those are my running backs.
Really?
Yeah. So no one was drafting Zeke because of the suspension, the 6-game suspension looming. So I took Le'Veon, came back and got Zeke, and then Devontae Freeman was still there. So my first 3 picks were running backs. I got Jordan Howard a little later, and then, like I said, I picked Alvin Kamara up off waivers. So I did end up winning the championship with that team.
Damn, man, look at you.
Yeah.
Up next, we got the top 10 rankings for 2019. Me and Smitty took precious time out of our super duper busy days. Took time and compiled just a quick top 10 rankings for each position: quarterback, running back, receiver, and tight end. Shout out to Ryan Platt for the idea he threw at Smitty for this.
Yeah. See, Ryan wanted 20. 20's too much, man. We narrowed it down to 10. But
yeah, I feel like we'd be here pretty much all day, kind of talking and debating. If we
I got a draft to do later. I can't be doing this all day. I got my own fantasy advice to take later on.
For sure. Quarterbacks, I should go ahead and start there. Pat Mahomes, number 1. Regression is definitely coming. He threw for 5,000 yards, 50 touchdowns. If he somehow is able to do that again, then we should crown him king right here and now. I actually have Matt Ryan as my second tiered fantasy quarterback. He finished his QB2 last year.
Yeah.
And, I feel like with Tevin Coleman out of the picture, they might turn to the pass just a little bit more. I don't think it changes the whole dynamic of Atlanta's offense, but definitely more passing opportunities. And I think that boosts a guy's value like Devontae Freeman up a little bit as well. Number 3, Deshaun Watson, really banking on him being healthy this year. Houston's offensive line is kind of hit or miss at this point. But, as long as, Deshaun Watson can stay healthy, he's got a new weapon in Duke Johnson. He's got the best receiver in football in DeAndre Hopkins as well. So, as long as he has weapons around him, I feel like he could easily produce at quarterback 3 levels. Andrew Luck is my 4th quarterback. And again, I'd pound the table for them being healthy. Please, Jesus Christ. But, Luck, whenever he's healthy, has proven to be one of the best quarterbacks in the league, just overall. Passing, running, he's able to do it. And, he has a guy like T.Y. Hilton, a guy like Eric Ebron, like we talked about earlier. Those are definitely 2 guys that you can depend on, especially near the end zone as well. So to round out my list, I have Jared Goff as my quarterback 5. As long as Sean McVay is, in LA, and he has a healthy receiving core of Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods, and Brendan Cooks, and Todd Gurley is able to help out in the passing game as well. I feel like Goff is overlooked as a fantasy quarterback, but I feel like he's able to put up 20, 25 points a game easy. I feel like it's a floor for him, so I really like that. Drew Brees is right behind him. A lot of people are picking him to take a deep regress year. I just don't see it happening. He still plays in one of the best offenses in football, on one of the best, offensive minds underneath Sean Payton. So, as long as Brees is there, surrounded by Kamara, Michael Thomas, guys like that, I really like him. Aaron Rodgers is kind of iffy to me, but he comes in at number 7. Russell Wilson is at 8. I think Baker Mayfield takes a decent leap this year. I have him at number 9. And then I have Roethlisberger here at number 10. And I know a lot of people will kind of be shy to put Big Ben in their top 10, especially after a guy like Antonio Brown left. But that's more targets for Juju. Dante Moncrief signed in Pittsburgh. I really like him. And, from what we've seen from James Washington, I think there's a lot to be excited about with Pittsburgh.
Yeah. Okay, so a lot of similar names, maybe a little bit different order. But I have Pat Mahomes as number 1. I don't know how you can have anybody else there right now. We kind of have a clearer picture now on the Tyreek Hill situation. So that plays into it a little bit. See, if Tyreek Hill isn't there, do you still have Mahomes as QB1?
Yeah, I think so. Just because Andy Reid will always find a way to get the ball moving, and have Tyreek Hill not been there, a guy like Mecole Hardman will just step up. He's essentially the same player, not skill wise, but it's just one of the fastest dudes on the field when you put him on there. And he's almost like a plug and play guy for Tyreek Hill had he not been there. So, like I said, I expect him to regress, but like the numbers are still going to be there.
Yeah. Number 2, I have Deshaun Watson. I feel like as I go through my list, you'll see a little bit of a trend here that I'm banking on these guys adding points with their legs as well.
Gotcha.
And Deshaun Watson's a guy that's going to do that this year. And another guy that I have at 3 and also banking on the rushing ability a little bit, but also health, Cam Newton. Cam Newton. I am a huge fan of Cam Newton. I feel like every single year he's underdrafted. I mean, even last year, he dealt with injuries and stuff and came in right around as a top fantasy quarterback. And he didn't play the last few weeks either. So, I actually drafted Cam Newton as my QB1 last year and ended up having Mahomes as my second quarterback. And Newton would have been fine as my starter, but obviously with what Mahomes did, once Mahomes, I was basically from week 3 on, he was my quarterback. I did start in week 2 against the Steelers, unfortunately.
I had to as well. I mean, we know. Yeah, we had to.
Yeah. Then 4 and 5, I have Matt Ryan, as you mentioned. Once again, a guy that people just, for whatever reason, don't love. He gets a ton of hate, and I don't get it.
He puts up numbers. He's almost wildly inconsistent. If you look at his stats, like every 2 years, he has just really solid output, and then the middle year in between, garbage.
Yeah. From a fantasy perspective, though, I don't see what there is to hate on. He's a QB1 every single year. And then Aaron Rodgers at 5. Here's where things got interesting for me. Number 6, your boy, Kyler Murray.
Kyler Murray.
If you watch the preseason week 2, you're probably thinking this guy's an idiot. But it's the preseason. He's still figuring things out. Once again, a guy that I feel like is going to add a lot. He adds a new dynamic with his legs. And Cliff Kingsbury's offense. I like the weapons that are there, to be honest with you. And I feel like, David Johnson out of the backfield, Larry Fitz and Christian Kirk. But I'm a believer in Kyler Murray in that offense. Russell Wilson at number 7. Again, a guy that limited people around him, always finds a way to be up there as a top-tier quarterback in fantasy. Again, he adds the rushing element. But, Doug Baldwin has been his best receiver in his career. And nothing against Doug Baldwin. Doug Baldwin's a very good football player. But, and the offensive line has been terrible too. But Russell Wilson just finds a way to get it done. Number 8, Baker Mayfield. You look at the weapons that are there, it's undeniable. Unfortunately, for Steeler fans, it's undeniable. You look at the running game. They got Nick Chubb there right now. Kareem Hunt, to a lesser extent, we kind of talked about, is he really going to have an impact there? How much? On our last show. OBJ and Jarvis Landry, David Njoku, Antonio Callaway after week 4. So, I mean, I like the weapons that are there a lot. Andrew Luck at number 9, and I would probably have him higher if there was zero injury concern. And once again, a lot of these guys we are banking on health on. I mean, we're banking on the health of everybody, essentially, because anybody can get hurt anytime. But with the question marks that have already been there through Andrew Luck's career, I think it's fair to say that that's a legit concern when ranking him. And then number 10, Big Ben. Once again, I'm on the same page with you. People are probably going to look at him a little differently without Antonio Brown. I mean, I get it. There's a lot of production there to replace, but I think it just means the ball's going to be spread out more. I don't know these don't lead the league in passing yards again, but I just feel like it's going to be a more balanced offense, and I feel like the numbers are still going to be pretty similar to last year. I don't think he's going to throw as many interceptions. That's a big part of it, too.
Yeah, when you look at all the interceptions he threw, and granted, when you throw the ball that amount of times, I think he had over like 480 attempts off the top of my head. Don't take my word for that. I just have to look that up later. But when you throw the ball almost more than anybody else in the league, you're gonna have more interceptions. It's kind of at law of averages. It's how the numbers work out. But if you watch a lot of those interceptions, they were to Antonio Brown, and Antonio Brown was either double teamed or it was just like, hey, like I need to get this ball out. I'm just gonna throw it to him, see what happens.
Yeah, and I think people really aren't talking about this, but it was the lowest interception percentage for somebody that led the league in interceptions ever. So yes, he did lead. He led the league in interceptions, but he also had like for a leader in that statistical category, it was the lowest percentage of interceptions. Because, like you said, he threw the ball so many times.
Yeah.
All right, so running backs, receivers. Which one do you want to do first?
I'll do running backs.
All right, go ahead.
For sure. Saquon Barkley, running back number 1. A lot of people are concerned that he might not hold up year 2 just because the situation is the same. As long as the opportunity is there, especially with a guy like Odell Beckham gone, he screams workhorse this year. So, there is no reason whatsoever not to trust him with the number 1 pick. I have Alvin Kamara at number 2. Mark Ingram's out of the picture now, kind of the same offense for New Orleans, and like I alluded to with Saquon, just more opportunity for Kamara, both on the ground and in the passing game. I have Christian McCaffrey as my running back 3. Just what a monster, giving us white guys hope, to ever be something. There's a lot of concerns about Cam Newton's shoulder, and that's kind of why I didn't have Cam Newton in my top 10, just because I don't think that shoulder is going to hold up this year. So some people are concerned about that and what that can limit for Christian McCaffrey's upside. But like we said, you kind of have to assume people are healthy. And if I'm assuming Cam Newton's healthy, I have to put Christian McCaffrey in my top 3. Number 4, I have Ezekiel Elliott, and I feel like that's where he's at for a lot of people. Not quite in that top 3, but, right at number 4 is where I've seen a lot of people have Zeke. Outside of the whole situation, he's going to get touches. He's automatically going to get 25, 30 rushes a game. Dallas really, really likes to utilize him. So, if we expect that trend to continue in 2019, you have to have Zeke as a top 5 running back. Let's see. David Johnson is my running back 5. A lot of people aren't high on him. I feel like he's not getting a lot of love. But, he's got somebody who knows how to run an offense now in Arizona. He's got one of the most young, explosive rookie quarterbacks in Kyler Murray. And, he's got some receiving help to take the pressure off of him as well. They drafted Keyshawn Johnson, Christian Kirk, obviously, last year. They still have Larry Fitzgerald. So, there's a lot of young hype around the Arizona Cardinals. And I guess I'm buying into it if I have DJ at number 5. So rounding out, I have Joe Mixon at 6. I dropped Todd Gurley all the way to number 7. Mixon's the interesting one, and we could probably get into that a little bit later. I have Le'Veon Bell at number 8, James Conner at number 9, and then Dalvin Cook at number 10.
Nice. Okay. Once again, I think you might have mentioned every single name I have on here except for one. So I have Saquon at number 1. As you did, I feel like, once again, like you mentioned, no Odell, the receiving situation isn't pretty, at least for especially in the first 4 weeks, with no Golden Tate there as well due to a suspension. I have McCaffrey and Kamara flip-flop from yours. I have Christian McCaffrey at 2 and Kamara at 3. I feel like, with those top 3, those are the top 3.
Yeah, I feel like those are interchangeable either way. You can't go wrong.
Yeah. And then between 4 and 5 was tough. I probably, if there was absolutely a very clear picture on Zeke, I would have him in front of David Johnson. But I actually have David Johnson in front of Zeke, and then Zeke at 5.
Perfect. Super understandable.
And then I have Le'Veon, James Conner. I would have Melvin Gordon here, but because I feel like that situation's not like Zeke's, like I could very well see Melvin Gordon not showing up. I'm gonna go with Nick Chubb, and I feel like getting back to what we said last week, by the time that Kareem Hunt is back, that's Nick Chubb's job, 100%.
Yeah, and should Nick Chubb continue where he left off from 2018, when Kareem Hunt comes back, Hunt might not even play that much. The Browns didn't spend a lot of money on him. I don't feel like you're obligated to give him a certain amount of touches per game. And if you have a running back that's kind of on a roll and he's hot like we're expecting Nick Chubb to be, why ruin that? Why kind of throw him off of his game? So that makes perfect sense.
Right. And then I have Todd Gurley, and then to round the top 10 out, Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon, who quietly, if you will, was 4th in the league in rushing last year.
Yeah, and not a lot of people are super high on Mixon this year, just because with AJ Green's injury history and what he seems to be battling right now, they've had a couple injuries to the offensive line, and and Andy Dalton's not the best quarterback in the world. A lot of people are going to be shy, but as long as there's opportunity when it comes to fantasy football, you got to take it. And Joe Mixon is looking at a lot of potential touches in 2019.
Yeah. And you mentioned Dalvin Cook, and if I were taking Zeke off this list, everybody moves up a spot, and Dalvin Cook goes to number 10.
Yeah. Yeah, so I feel like the top 10 are kind of set. Obviously, there's some interchangeable parts, like, the differences we had, but, I feel like the top 3 is set, and then kind of the rest are, hey, I can move from here or there. But there's no super drastic running backs, I feel like.
Yeah. Your Skype was going crazy there for a second, but I think you're good. It was still showing me audio, so maybe the chat.
Man,
the chat's gonna let me know, but
I'm gonna write a nicely worded letter to Skype after we're done with this.
I'll send them an email.
Yeah.
You're ruining everything.
Pony Express.
You're ruining one of the greatest things to happen to Twitch.
So kicking off the receivers, I have DeAndre Hopkins at number 1. Like we talked about earlier, the top 3 are kind of molded. Like top 4 or 5 for receivers actually, but DeAndre Hopkins just catches everything. Didn't have a single drop in 2018. He's he does everything. He can catch a deep ball. He's one of the best route runners in the league. There's nothing to like about Hopkins in this situation. Duke Johnson being added doesn't scare me a whole bunch. Are 1 or 2 balls going to go his way per game? That should be on DeAndre, sure. But over the course of time, that doesn't really affect me and where I want to put DeAndre. Number 2, I have Julio. Kind of the same story as DeAndre. He's one of the best receivers in the league. He does everything extremely well. He plays in a very prolific offense with Matt Ryan throwing him the football. So, as long as Matt Ryan is standing up and healthy, that's more ample opportunity for Julio. I have Devontae Adams at number 3, and I feel like as good as Devontae is, he gets no respect at all. He's a touchdown machine when Aaron Rodgers is hooking up with him. Just look at Green Bay's depth chart. It's Devontae Adams, nobody else. Marquez Valdes-Scantling, Kumaro. It's these players, the other receivers on the Packers depth chart. Not that they're trash because they've accomplished more than I ever will in life, but it's Devontae Adams in a class of his own, and then just everybody else. And the connection him and Aaron Rodgers has is super special. So I'll bank on that right into 2019, I suppose. Odell Beckham is there for me at number 4. I feel like he is primed for the best year of his career, and I know a lot of Steelers fans don't want to hear that, but he's in an offense to where it can absolutely happen. So I have Michael Thomas at number 5, Antonio Brown at number 6, assuming he doesn't get frostbite again, Tyreek Hill at 7, Juju Smith-Schuster at number 8, Mike Evans at 9, and then Keenan Allen is my wide receiver 10.
Mm, okay. All right. Well, Hopkins is my number one. That's set in stone for me. Really didn't falter or waver on that at all. He's been there for me the entire time. I actually have Michael Thomas at number two.
Dude, I can totally see that. Like all of these guys are extremely good to the point where if they end up wide receiver one over a guy like Hopkins, I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah. And my wide receiver three is Devontae Adams. Like you mentioned, in the class of his own in terms of the Packers wide receivers, Marquez Valdez-Scantling's there, Gerardo Allison's there. They have Jimmy Graham at tight end, but who the heck knows? Yeah. Who the heck knows what's going on with Jimmy Graham? He had the health issues last year and everything. So I have Odell at 4, which is that's the exact spot you had him at, I believe. Once again, unfortunately for the Steelers, I feel like he dealt with an aging Eli Manning was still putting up the numbers that he did. Now he's got Baker Mayfield in year 2. Another weapon on the other side of him in Jarvis Landry. David Njoku at tight end. They have a running game there. So Odell could very well have a career year. Julio, number 5. The only reason that I have him at number 5 that low, I feel like the touchdown volume is never really there. And that doesn't matter. I mean, he's put up points every single year. But and maybe that changes this year. But Calvin Ridley, I can see Austin Hooper making a little bit of a leap at tight end as well. So I don't know that the touchdowns are going to see that much of an uptick. That's why I have Julio at number 5. I have Juju at number 6. I just feel like, once again, you look at the Steelers receivers that they have there. I like the other options, but it's pretty clear cut that Juju's the number 1. I feel like I even said on last week's episode I could see Moncrief leading the team in touchdowns. That's my prediction. But I feel like Juju's going to be a receiving yard monster. I don't want to put a number on the amount of targets, but
so long as they keep him in the slot, where he's super efficient out of, he'll put up the same numbers as he did last year, if not better.
Yeah. I got your boy here, Keenan Allen, who I believe is the best route runner in the NFL.
Hey, he's top 3 for sure. He's not 2 or 3.
And he's not 2 or 3. I love it. I have Antonio Brown at number 8. Tyreek Hill at number 9. And then I kind of got to go with this guy at number 10 based on what I said last week, where he takes the leap into wide receiver 1, Amari Cooper.
Very nice.
I mean, that was my pick to take the leap into wide receiver 1 status this year, so I kind of have to go with that. Otherwise, I'm lying to the listeners here on what I think about it.
Hey, man, if Zeke sticks out, that's going to be one hell of a prediction, So
yeah.
For sure. Kicking off the tight ends, top 3 set in stone, like we talked about.
Yep.
I have Travis Kelce as my number 1 tight end. Even with Tyreek Hill not being suspended at all, Kelce is still able to produce with him on the field. You could argue that Tyreek Hill taking the top off the defense creates more room for Kelce to work with anyway. I have Zach Ertz as my tight end number 2. A lot of people are...
Might as well be a wide receiver.
Fuck, yeah, really. A lot of people are concerned with Dallas Goedert being in the picture and kind of emerging like he is. But Ertz should still see well over 100 targets this year. And, as long as Carson Wentz is healthy, and that's kind of the theme of the episode today, I guess, if they're healthy.
See, for me, not to cut you off, but in terms of Zach Ertz, with Goddard behind him, I would think that that's not necessarily a concern for production right now, but as far like a concern in not even related to fantasy football, but will Zach Ertz get another contract there? Because are you going to want to pay a guy when you have a cheaper guy in Dallas Goedert? But as far as for right now, present time, fantasy football related, I don't think that takes a hit on Zach Ertz.
Definitely, yeah. George Kittle, my number 3. And like I said, you could swap any of those guys out of the top 3, and I'd be perfectly fine with it. I want to see him play a full season with Jimmy Garoppolo. Not just have him at the tail end or at the beginning of the season, and then him just kind of get hurt. So I think with Garoppolo there, while I don't think the word of Jimmy Garoppolo, I do think it will help George Kittle's numbers. But he's proved he's able to produce regardless, so that's really nice. Especially in tight end premium leagues. Those are super, super nice. Evan Ingram is my tight end number 4, and I fallen in love with Ingram over kind of the fantasy draft process. Like you alluded to earlier with Saquon, there's super ample opportunity for these Giants players now, especially with the receiving terms of it. Whether it be Golden Tate suspension or just like the plethora of injuries the Giants have sustained. There's a lot of room for Evan Ingram to work. If he's able to play 16 games, he's a mismatch nightmare, and I think he's going to produce like crazy this year. So to round it out, I have Hunter Henry as my tight end number 5. Before he had gotten hurt, he was producing at Gronkowski levels with Phillip Rivers. I think he'll return, and Phillip Rivers seems to have a liking to him, hopefully. So I have O.J. Howard after that at number 6. Vance McDonald, number 7. I think McDonald takes a huge leap this year. I was talking with our board, Logan Bell, in the draft. Shout out to him because Logan actually took him in our draft. So him and Jesse James last year split the snaps almost identical, 50-50. I believe Jesse James had 2 more snaps than Vance McDonald or vice versa. And we saw what McDonald was able to do when healthy. And you take Jesse James out of the picture now. You take Antonio Brown targets out of the picture now. And that kind of leaves this workhorse space for Vance McDonald to emerge as a tight end 1 in a lot of the fantasy leagues. David Njoku as my number 8 guy. I'm not super high on him. I've just never been, especially with Odell Beckham going there now. The tight end position is kind of like sparse, so a lot of people are just going to be going off names other than drafting. So Njoku still has the potential to produce extremely well, but over a 16-game stretch, he just hasn't been able to do that. Jared Cook is at number 9 for me, going to New Orleans after a pretty solid year with Oakland. Saints tight ends have never really emerged as top 10 tight ends, at least for a season stretch. But you put him in an offense like that with a guy like Drew Brees thrown to him, you can't not like him. And then Austin Hooper is actually my 10th tight end. He quietly had a really good year last year, and nobody seems to want to talk about him.
Yeah. A lot of familiar names. Kelsey or Kittle. That's my top 3. 4, I have Evan Ingram. 5, O.J. Howard. 6, I mean, I see the regression as well. But with what he did last year, I got to have Eric Ebron there. Just because him and Luck can do not necessarily that same thing again this year, but if Luck's healthy, Ebron's healthy, the production last year is too good to keep him off my list right now. I have Vance McDonald, Jared Cook, Hunter Henry, like you said, when healthy, he looked like he was the next great tight end in this league. And then my number 10, once again, a guy that I took last week to make a leap, so I'd be remiss if I left him off this list, Mark Andrews, which might surprise somebody.
Yeah, he's quietly getting a lot of hype around the fantasy community. He's one of those sneaky tight end picks that you can get at the lower end of drafts, and if he does pan out, then you look like a genius for drafting him so low. But yeah, Andrews is getting a lot of hype in Baltimore, which is great because I feel like they have 50 tight ends on the roster, and any one of those guys could kind of explode.
Yeah, as you mentioned last week, Hayden Hurst was taken early by them, and that he was supposed to be the pass catching tight end there. But you look at the emergence of Mark Andrews and, maybe Lamar Jackson, although Hayden Hurst was supposed to be that guy, maybe Mark Andrews ends up being that guy.
Yeah, we'll definitely see about it. Mark Andrews is definitely a really good pass-catching tight end. Over the weekend, shout out to another one of my league mates, Richie Bradshaw, who covers the Ravens. We were talking about Andrews because I was kind of interested, and he had told me that Hayden Hurst was more of the overall tight end that can block and catch, and Andrews was purely a pass catcher. So, given that information, it's easy to understand why if you're going to take a Ravens tight end, Andrews is definitely the one to go to.
Yeah. I mean, I don't care how well he can block.
Yeah.
This is fantasy football.
Yeah, exactly. You especially just from a pure football standpoint, you really don't need tight ends to block anymore.
Yeah.
I feel like if you're going to go a heavy package, just bring in another offensive lineman.
Okay, well that wraps up our top 10. Word to Ryan Platt. So, talking about the top running backs that we had there. We both said Saquon, CMC, Christian McCaffrey, and Alvin Kamara. Those are the top three. You had Kamara before CMC. But are those the only three guys that you would take number one overall, or is there a receiver in there as well that should get consideration?
It'll just depend on the kind of league you play in. If we're just talking just pure like redraft PPR, like 10-man league, yeah, just given their situations and kind of the floors they have, I feel like you have a safety net when it comes to guys like Barkley, McCaffrey and Kamara. Just, absolute worst case scenario, they produce at said level. Fantasy football is all about minimizing risk, and I feel like those three guys specifically minimized risk the best out of the draft class.
Right. I want to get to Chad here for a second because we got to keep up with these guys that are with us live. If you listen back to this and you're confused, if you listen back to this and you're confused on what I'm saying, we do stream this live when we do it on Twitch. So if you're listening on Spotify, iTunes, iHeartRadio, whatever it might be, head on over to twitch.tv/aroundthe412. Drop us a follow, turn on notifications, and you'll know when we go live. But Stubbs is saying Vance McDonald, when you mentioned him, he said Vance McDonald is still running in Tampa Bay.
Yeah, have they picked Chris Conte up from the 8th layer of hell yet? Or
and then he said, please don't do kickers. No, don't worry. It's just QB, RB, wide receiver, tight end. That's what we're going to be talking about on here. Stubbs said he'll laugh the whole time if we did, though. And when you said heavy package for the Ravens, Sarge said, I'll give you a heavy package. So, thanks for that, Sarge. Insightful stuff. But I'm with you. I mean, so my league today, for example, we do half-point PPR. It's a redraft league. I would go running back number one overall. And it's Saquon for me. So
I just feel like with the top level elite talent at running back, if you're big on running backs, a lot of people aren't in fantasy football. But if it's there, you got to take the elite running back levels over the wide receiver levels. Just because of the parity with the top running backs isn't the same as like the middle or the bottom of the running back barrel. Whereas like if you miss out on a guy like DeAndre Hopkins, you can, like, for example, I didn't get a receiver round one. Came back to the turn. I drafted Mike Evans and Keenan Allen back to back. End of round 2, end of round 3. I'm perfectly happy with that. While I would like DeAndre Hopkins on my team, I would much rather have a guy like Alvin Kamara. So.
Right. And looking at what the guys that you got there from a perspective, 2019 ESPN Fantasy Football Cheat Sheet, free advertising for ESPN on here.
Yeah, really.
Mike Evans, number 9, and Keenan Allen, number 10 on pre-draft ranking. So you still get 2 top 10 receivers, even while going running back first.
Right, yep.
Where if the case is you go wide receiver first, your running back situation you're probably not going to be happy with. Maybe you get one of the guys that you wanted at running back, but the second guy you're settling on is probably more of like, a middle-tier running back. And as you said, that's a much more of a drop-off in the running back department than the wide receiver.
Exactly, yeah. And like we said earlier, it kind of all depends on what league you play in, but a vast majority of leagues are all the same. So, in that case, you definitely want to eye running back talent over wide receiver talent.
Yeah. So we're both in agreement then that Saquon should be number 1.
Yeah.
Okay. Especially, what do you think about? I mentioned a league that I knew of where you get 0.2 points as opposed to 0.1 for every receiving yard. Would that change your mind and make you go receiver first?
Probably not, because like guys like Barkley and McCaffrey and Kamara are so heavily involved in the running game. Sorry, not in the running game. Well, they are, but like in the pass game as well. I feel like that just increases their value significantly more. Had it be like a 2-point per reception league, then you kind of might want to start looking at guys like DeAndre Hopkins and like Devontae Adams and Julio and stuff. But in a league where they get 2 points for every yard, I feel like it just increases the value of a guy like Barkley or like McCaffrey, Elliott even more. Sorry, Kamara.
Yeah, I'm confused by what Stubbs just said. Deshaun Jackson ? I'm not sure if that's what we think of Deshaun Jackson, or because I know you're not saying he should be considered number 1 here, unless you're messing around.
He's okay. I feel like the Eagles just have like a wealth of talent on offense. I mean, they drafted J.J. Arcega-Whiteside in the second round, so I think they're expecting really big things out of him.
I like him a lot.
But I feel like Zach Ertz is the prominent number one option in there. Alshon Jeffrey will be healthy, this season at the start of it, so you'll see what he can do. The Eagles have a stable running back they really like, so there's a lot of good players in Philadelphia, but in terms of fantasy, there's also a lot of question marks.
Right. And if he's asking about, where he is, he's wide receiver 49 on the list. He's actually behind both other receivers in Green Bay and Geronimo Allison and Marquez Valdez-Scantling. I'm probably a little higher on Deshaun Jackson than wide receiver 49, but...
Yeah, I would be a little bit higher on him just because of the big playability he brings, and we saw it in Tampa Bay last year. I just don't know if Philly's going to air it out like Tampa Bay did last year.
Right. Couple of things. Looks like we have an actual question here in the chat. Sarge wants to know, he's in my league as well, Donnie, so don't give him that good of advice. Assuming the top 4 running backs go in the first 4 picks, what's your advice on whether drafting a back-end running back one versus a staple wide receiver? Oh, that's a nice trophy.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, thank you. Just, put it out for Sarge. If he ever wants the advice, come holler at me. So to answer Sarge's question, I feel like once the top 4 running backs are gone, that's when you really start to look at receivers. I feel like taking a guy like DeAndre Hopkins at number 5, absolute steal. He's still going to be able to produce. And you guys said you're a half-point PPR?
Yeah.
For sure. So that'll take away just a little bit of value from receivers. But if I'm able to get DeAndre Hopkins at 5, that's a really good start for me. So I would definitely start to eye the top receiver talent over some of the not middle ground running backs, because a guy like David Johnson and Todd Gurley, Le'Veon Bell, those guys are still going in round 1s of leagues. But I would rather have a guy like Hopkins or even like Odell or Devontae Adams over them.
How many wide receivers do you think so it's 10-team league, the one that we're in. Gotcha. How many wide receivers, what do you think that ratio should be, I guess is what I'm asking? Running back receivers.
Probably 3 or 4 to 1. In a 10-man league, Hopkins has to go, first round no matter what. I would understand seeing... I would almost expect a guy like Odell or probably a guy like Julio to be taken in the first round as well. But I feel like end of the first round, early second round is where you're going to start to see a lot of receivers go. So that's where you'll see guys, Devontae Adams, Michael Thomas, Antonio Brown, Tyreek Hill. I feel like that's where you're going to start to see guys just pop off the board over there.
Mm-hmm. I'm actually hoping to get a back-end pick for the first round. So my league, too, we use a stack of cards to determine our picks, and we redeal each round, so you don't keep the same pick.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. And I probably should have mentioned that, because it's not, so it does snake up and down once. Once number 1 picks twice, I collect the cards and redeal.
How'd you guys come up with that idea? That's
I carried that over from my dad's league. We don't do that draft in person anymore. We just do it online, which sucks because I like the live draft so much.
Yeah,
I just like the environment. But he always did that. So when I started doing a league, I just carried it over and didn't realize that wasn't a common thing. Most people just keep the same pick the entire draft. But I honestly like the idea of having a different pick each round.
See, I like that. That's one of the things that make fantasy football fun. Everybody has their own things, but God, dude, that's gotta be such a shake-up for drafts, man. Imagine just getting the shit out of the stick almost every round.
Well, see, a couple of years ago, I don't shuffle the cards, so people don't think that I'm doing anything weird. But there was a league where at the draft, my first 3 picks were pick 1, pick 2, and then pick 1.
Fucking phenomenal, man.
That was a pretty good draft.
Championship that year, right?
That honestly, that might have been the league where I had the running back situation that I did that carried me. It probably was that league. Okay, so where do we want to? We should probably touch on one thing, because this won't take too much time to talk about. We have a couple of segments to do. But Josh Gordon being reinstated conditionally with the Patriots, so all of a sudden Tom Brady has a weapon there, like no other. Julian Edelman's a good receiver, but we know what he is. He, operates in the slot mainly. Obviously, for a PPR standpoint, he's going to catch a good amount of passes, but he's not that big play threat that Josh Gordon presents to that offense.
Yeah, and just to touch on the conditions of his conditional reinstatement. So he's able to start practicing on Sunday. He won't be playing in the Patriots' third preseason game, but he's eligible to play in the final preseason game. It is important to reiterate that he's not fully reinstated, as in he cannot play actual regular season NFL games yet. When they're going to decide that, we don't know. It's kind of like a wait-and-see process at this point. Usually it takes a good amount of time to kind of make sure the player can prove themselves before Roger Goodell takes them off of the leash. But, just kind of looking at his 2018 numbers, he played in 11 games, 40 receptions on 68 targets for 720 yards, added 3 touchdowns to that as well after he was traded to New England from Cleveland. What do you see his fantasy value as? Because for me, if you can take a late round flyer on him, absolutely. Yeah. He doesn't jump off the board for me. He's, I don't know, I'm more of the mindset of until he can prove me wrong, from kind of breaking out of that cycle, this and that. He can be the world's greatest receiver, but, the best ability is availability, and he hasn't been available for the Patriots the last couple of years.
Yeah. I can't confidently take him as anything more than a bench stash at this point. Like you said, if you're going to take a flyer on him, that's one thing, but to confidently take him and say this is going to be my wide receiver 2 or flex or something like that, I can't do it. I don't think that's sound draft strategy to do so. I think that you kind of have to have your roster filled out already and say these are my guys that are going to be my starters. If I get something from Josh Gordon, great. But I don't think that you can put him in a position or put your team in a position where Josh Gordon has to start for you.
Yeah, absolutely. You would definitely want to make sure that you have most of your team filled out before you take a guy like Gordon. If he doesn't work out, oh well. You spend a late round pick on him. Majority of the late round picks in fantasy don't pan out anyway. So you're not like sweating over the pick that you took from him, or even like if you pick him up on waivers, it's not the worst waiver wire pickup in the world. But I can't look at you and realistically expect him to play all 16 games. I can't expect him to produce at levels he showed in Cleveland. I can't expect him to be available to play all 16 games. It's the pattern he's shown isn't a very promising one. And while he has all of the talent in the world, unfortunately, I just don't have confidence in him to keep it up.
Yeah. I mean, if I'm looking down the receiver list and trying to find a spot for him in terms of, where I would rank him among receivers, it's just the variance is so high with him that I have no idea what to do here.
Yeah.
I mean, if I'm putting him on a sheet right now, like you said, right now it's just on a conditional basis that he's reinstated. So right now I wouldn't even have him on the list. Like until I know for sure that he can play in an actual football game and contribute to the Patriots offense, I can't put him on the list. Now, if he were fully reinstated, I'd probably have him somewhere in the 45 to 50 range.
That sounds about right, yeah.
I mean, but like I said, the variance is just so high because if he does come back and he is Josh Gordon, that's a steal picking him there.
Yeah, his 2018 numbers weren't terrible by any means. I mean, he had over 700 yards in just 11 games played. He had 68 targets in 11 games. So he's hitting like a wide receiver 2 or 3 numbers just right there. I mean, should that pattern, should that average have been carried over for a whole season? But let's look at the Patriots situation. Should he go there? You'd expect him to start on the outside with Julian Edelman working out of the slot. They have receivers like N'Keal Harry there. Mm-hmm. Like we mentioned, Julian Edelman. Gronkowski is gone, so a lot of the offense is going to have to kind of be reshifted and reworked. James White is going to be catching passes out of the backfield. Sony Michel is probably going to have a more prominent role in 2019. So, while Gordon's talent, he's one of the most talented receivers in the league. You kind of have to look at the Patriots, situation and see if Brady would be able to, get him to that numbers again.
Right. Okay. Well, just a little bit there on Josh Gordon. Once again, the picture will become clear It's just based off the information we have right now, what we would do with that situation. At best, we're taking a late round flyer on him.
Yeah.
Moving on, what do we got still?
I don't know. Time to play a little bit of overrated, underrated.
Okay. All right. Well, why don't you start here?
Okay. So kind of the basis for this is, through the notes that we discussed. Did you want to do overrated or underrated, or Tinder first?
I want to end with Tinder.
Okay. Yeah, it's probably a good call. Okay. So I guess we can just. Are we drawing names out of the hat for this segment, or are we just kind of? Am I giving you players?
Yeah, you just give me a player and tell me where they're at.
Sounds good. Okay. And are we using ADP? Yeah.
I can't pull up ADP on my laptop because
I gotta pull up.
Okay.
I gotta pull up right here for you, my man.
Gotcha.
Okay, for sure. So I'll give you a couple players. Give me your thoughts, and then we'll kind of just discuss and go from there.
Okay.
So first one on this list I had in mind, Sony Michel. He's the 43rd ranked player. He is going in about the 4th round.
Okay, where does that rank among running backs?
Sony Michel currently is RB10. Sorry, that's his bye week. Don't listen to me. I'm stupid.
Crap. Look at your Skype. I'm gonna call you back. Yeah. 1 second, folks, again. Good God, man. Anyway, so he said Sony Michel. Right now, the ADP at 43 overall. So, man. I'm going to say underrated. I like Sony Michel a lot this year. He's right on the cusp of being on my top 10 list. Like you said, the offense is going to be a lot of moving pieces. I think that the other running backs on that team will probably bring value to them out of the backfield catching passes. Sony Michel is going to be the workhorse on the ground. And I'm a big fan of Sony Michel, so I'm going to say that he is going to beat that projection this year. Man, we're almost on Fantasy Football Tinder. It's about to be the best part of the show, guys. I'm gonna let these just sit here for a second. For anybody that's wondering, this is a Robert Foster jersey. Boy, howdy. Are you not getting this call? Hello?
Bracken.
Okay. Alright, we're back.
We back.
Sony Michel, underrated. Next.
Damian Williams.
Oh, where's he going?
2.9, so end of the 2nd, early 3rd.
KC, man, their running back situation just seems like it's always changing. I get that the Kareem Hunt situation played a role in that. I'm going to say he doesn't meet that projection. Overrated.
Yeah, so the whole conundrum with Damian Williams is, you're kind of taking two sides when you're talking about him. Either you are taking the Chiefs are able to produce with running backs basically no matter what. Damian Williams, in the short time he played with the Chiefs last year, showed he could produce at super high levels. So you can either take that side of it, or you can look at his previous history he had. I believe he played on Miami for a year or two, and he just, given the opportunities he had, he didn't do very well. But you know as well as I do that football is a situational, kind of thing. So if you take one player and you put him in another offense, you put him underneath a guy like Andy Reid, he succeeded in the short amount of time he played after Kareem Hunt got suspended. So it's kind of whether or not you expect him to carry that workload from 2018. So I feel like if he can produce like a Kansas City running back can, I feel super comfortable taking him at the end of the third round. Sorry, second, early third.
Okay. All right. Next.
Derrick Henry.
Oh man, he had like an incredible quarter of a season, but before that, it was probably, I don't know where he would have finished last year if he would have just stayed on pace with the first 12 weeks. But I would say it was pretty disappointing. I'm gonna say, where's he ranked at?
As far as running backs go?
Yeah.
Derrick Henry is running back. I just had him. I literally just had him. I literally just had Derrick Henry.
ESPN has him as running back
21.
17. Okay, no, 21.
That's why this is on Fantasy Football Calculator, so they might be a little different.
Yeah, ESPN has him at 17. I would say that 21 is probably more where I would have him. So, based off that one, I'll say he's right about where I would have him. Based off the ESPN sheet that I'm looking at, I would say overrated by a little bit. I don't know. I feel like my thing with Derrick Henry is I expected Dion Lewis to have more of a role there last year than he did, especially because they paid him a decent amount of money, and I feel like they're going to try to incorporate him even more this year. And Derrick Henry, like I said, minus that quarter of the season that was just incredible for him, we would have all sat here saying he had another disappointing season. So I'm going to say overrated for Derrick Henry.
Okay. So we'll shift to a couple of receivers here I want to get your opinion on. The first one being Tyler Boyd.
Tyler Boyd. I love Tyler Boyd. Obviously, Pitt product, H2P, brother.
No, we don't.
But anyway, Tyler Boyd just got paid. $43 million contract. So, and not knowing the situation with AJ Green there, is that better? Is that worse? Are teams going to, sway their defense to cover him more depending on that situation? The tight end situation, they brought back Tyler Eifert, but who the hell knows what's going to be going on with him? I'm sure he'll be hurt by week 4. But I still really like Tyler Boyd. Where is he going?
Tyler Boyd is going, so he's the 25th ranked receiver. He's going end of the 5th, early 6th round.
Yeah, that's on par with ESPN having him at 25.
Awesome. Yeah. So some guys around him. Mike Williams is ahead of him for the Chargers, and then DJ Moore is underneath him for the.
I actually really like DJ Moore too, so I'm not even going to say that he's.
I like DJ Moore.
I see Sammy Watkins one slot below him, and Sammy Watkins is another guy they just keep putting in basically the same position on draft boards based off potential. But when are we actually going to see it? And in Kansas City's offense, that should be the perfect place for him.
Exactly. But it's health for him. He can never stay on the field. We've seen what he can do. Especially in Buffalo before he kind of took that little trail end to Kansas City. But if you can't succeed in an offense underneath Andy Reid, I'm not sure we're going to be able to do that at.
Yeah. So I think 25 is probably about where I would have him. Actually going a little bit higher on the list. About around guys that are around him. Man, Chris Godwin's at 21 now. I'm happy that people are getting on that train.
Yeah, dude, ample opportunity, especially with a guy like Bruce Arians going to Tampa Bay. Bringing that kind of air raid offense, if you will. Godwin showed a lot of promise last year, and people are really expecting him to take another leap. Especially with Deshaun Jackson's gone out of the picture now. With no real threat in the running game in Tampa Bay, it looks like they're going to have to air it out again in 2019.
And actually, his teammate here, AJ Green, pops up a few spots under him on ESPN, ranked wide receiver 29.
So, interesting, yeah.
And 58th in terms of ADP actually on this list.
58th. Yikes. Okay. And then really quick, I want to get your opinion on this, just because this isn't necessarily overrated or underrated, but kind of more would you rather? Adam Thielen or Stephon Diggs?
Man. I feel like
they essentially produce.
I feel like they're baiting me with this.
No, I'm not.
I'm a huge Adam Thielen fan. I'm going to say Man, and Kirk Cousins, he's the X factor for both those guys, obviously. But I'm going to say Thielen's the safer bet, so I'll go with Thielen. But I think Diggs is the ceiling guy there, the higher ceiling.
Yeah, I would have to agree. They're almost identical to me. I would be super happy with having either one, at least on Fantasy Football Calculator. Adam Thielen's at number 12 and Stephon Diggs is at number 14. Thielen's going end of the third, Stephon's going beginning of the fourth. So it's really just kind of your preference there. But I feel like Cousins likes throwing to Thielen more than Diggs, but Diggs is still able to produce at almost the same level as he is. And the good thing about that is, you can't necessarily double team one or the other. Both receivers are proven commodities. You can't completely ignore. So I feel like either way, having both of them on your team would benefit. But it's a pick. I would have to agree with you. I would go Thielen.
Yeah. And I mean, looking at it, even on ESPN, it's pretty similar here. They got Thielen as wide receiver 14, 31 overall, and Stephon Diggs is 16, 33 overall. So, once again, just two spots separating them.
And then the last one, would you rather have James White or Sony Michel?
Oh, man. I'm going to say, in a non-PPR, it's not even close that I'd go Sony Michel. If it's a PPR league, I'm still going Sony Michel, but it's a lot closer. Like, I would be perfectly fine having James White as my RB2 reflect in the PPR league this year.
Yeah, and we kind of touched on it a little bit with the whole Josh Gordon situation. Gronkowski's gone. There's no prominent receiving threat outside Julian Edelman on New England right now. So, James White could be looking at a lot of work in 2019. So I feel like I'd rather select him. But, when the Patriots get in the red zone, past the 20-yard line, who's to say Sony Michel isn't the guy that he was last year, Michel could get a lot of the touchdown work, and, touchdowns are almost everything in fantasy, so...
Yeah. A couple things in chat. This must be a new viewer. Probably just went into the shows and found us by our name. Furious Jorge said, thinking Rodgers first round. Absolutely not. If you take Aaron Rodgers in the first round, come back in here and tell us, and we will send out help for you. Sarge said, wait, do neither of you have Rudolph in your top 10 tight ends? No, we do not.
No. I respect Rudolph a lot, but in terms of fantasy production, I just don't see it.
No, he so on ESPN's sheet, he comes in as tight end 19. I might have him a little higher, maybe a little bit, but not by much. Yeah. So the guys in front of him, Kelsey, Ertz, Kittle, Ingram, Howard, Henry, Cook, McDonald, Njoku, Walker, Ebron, Hooper, Jordan Reed, who, man, I mean, obviously health plays a factor there. Trey Burton, who was supposed to have a monster year last year with Chicago. That didn't happen. I know firsthand having him on my fantasy team. Greg Olsen, Mark Andrews, Jack Doyle, Jimmy Graham, and then Kyle Rudolph.
I feel like I would put Rudolph over Doyle and Graham, but that's about it.
Yeah, I'm not sure why Jack Doyle comes in that high after we saw last year. I really don't know what's going on there. Even Chris Herndon, if he didn't have the suspension, is an interesting name.
Yeah.
Rookie T.J. Hawkinson's right after him, and Noah Fant right under him. So, are we ready for the most anticipated segment in show history?
I've been waiting for it. Let's go, baby.
All right. So Donnie has been in a committed relationship for a while, so he's not sure. He's not on the whole Tinder game. I haven't had a Tinder. For anybody that hasn't had one, the way that it goes is you swipe right or left, depending on if you like what you see. Not just by looks, but you get a little bit of a biography in there too. So what we're going to do is I have some random names in a hat and where they rank on ESPN's sheet in terms of their position. And what we're going to do is I'm going to pull the name out of the hat, and you're going to say if you would swipe right or swipe left on where they rank. Ready to do this?
I've been ready. Let's do it. Right. Don't tell my girlfriend I'm playing Tinder right now.
You get the first one. By the way, this hat is an Around the 412 hat. You can go to shop.spreadshirt/Around the 412 and get the exact same one.
Dude, your pluggability is fucking phenomenal, man. I'm ready.
All right, so swipe right is good, swipe left is bad. To reiterate. All right, Donnie, you got the first one. You got Nick Chubb, running back 14 per ESPN's cheat sheets.
I'm going to swipe right. I really like that. We touched on it earlier. Nick Chubb, at least running the football, should get very ample opportunity. You said he's running back where?
14.
14, okay. So his current ADP is at the end of the first round right now, based on what a lot of drafts are saying, at least on Fantasy Football Calculator. That's an absolute steal for me. I'm going to swipe right, and I'll probably look them up on Facebook, too.
All right. First one for me. So we put, there's four running backs, 4 wide receivers, 4 quarterbacks, 4 tight ends.
Let's do it.
So that's 1 running back out of the way. First one for me, Delaney Walker at tight end 10. I'm going to say left, unfortunately. I would swipe right if I felt like he were going to play 16 games this year. I think that health's a major concern. Obviously, it was last season. I don't think that he finishes as a top 10 tight end this year. Therefore, I am swiping left and probably blocking them on Tinder.
Can you block people on Tinder?
I don't know. You probably have to match with them first, I would assume.
Gotcha.
All right, Donnie. Number 2 here. Let's see if you get let's see if you can get more than one match. You might have your DMs blowing up if so.
Yeah. It goes down in the DM.
Oh, this is the name that I've already seen you mentioned on Twitter, so this is good. Pettis. Dante Pettis, wide receiver 37.
Smitty, you can stop talking right now. I'm going to swipe left on that, homie. Man, the Dante Pettis hype train was one of the most unbelievable things I've ever seen in my entire life. That man has gotten more hype than any low-end receiver I've ever seen. And now the hype train is crashing because people are worried, because people are outperforming him in preseason games. I love it. The whole Dante Pettis love is catching on fire. I'm swiping left. I don't believe in him. I don't believe in pretty much any San Francisco receiver outside of maybe Deebo Samuel if he can pick things up.
Deebo Samuel's my boy. I love Deebo Samuel.
Deebo is phenomenal. But if we're talking about Dante Pettis, I don't care where. I'm not going to draft him, so I'm swiping left.
All right. Once again, man, it sounds like you're going to block them.
Yeah. Man, I'll block him on everything, man. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter.
Oh, boy. Kyler Murray. QB13. I will swipe right. I think that he's going to be much higher than 13. As I said, I have him in my top 10. So I'm swiping right. I'm hoping that he swipes right on me and I can message him and we'll get together.
Ooh.
See, that's the thing. That's how it works. We can swipe right or left on these guys. If we swipe right, they got to swipe right on us, too.
Yeah, exactly. I'm ready for it. You're all mine, Kyler.
All right. Donnie, Jordan Howard comes in at running back 42 on this list.
Running back 42?
On ESPN's list. I'm not sure where he ranks on the list that you're looking at, but...
Okay, so if he's purely speaking running back 42... I don't feel like there's 41 other running backs in the league that are better than him. 42. Jordan Howard. So just based off of just what you told me, I will swipe right on Jordan Howard.
Mm-hmm.
Like we mentioned, so he's going 7th round. I would feel comfortable taking him as a backup running back. I don't feel comfortable with him in one of my starting spots. So I'll swipe right, but I'll be cautious about him. If he messages me, I might play the waiting game with him. I'll wait for a significant amount of time before I respond, or I might just leave him on red. I don't know. Miles Sanders in that backfield really throws a wrench in things for me as far as a fantasy standpoint. Apparently Sanders has looked really good, and the touches that he's seen. But as Philly has shown, you really can't trust one running back to go week to week with the workload. So I'll swipe right, but I'll be really cautious about it.
It's funny that in the chat, Sergeant Stubbs just keeps saying left or right as well.
Hey, what'd they say?
They're playing along. Well, honestly, I don't know. So Stubbs originally said is right good or bad, so I'm not sure he knows how to play.
Gotcha.
Sarge said, okay, let's hope there's some disagreement here as a joke. Sarge said left on Murray.
Really?
Yeah.
See, I understand just because it's a rookie quarterback, and the height definitely plays some concerns, and the body frame, whether or not he can sustain hits at an NFL level, through a certain amount of time is definitely reason for concern. But I think the talent's there. I think he's in a good system, so we'll see.
Right. Okay. My turn, right? Yeah, it was your Jordan.
Yeah.
This is Brandon Cooks, wide receiver 15. Line up the computer there. Wide receiver 15 per ESPN's list. For me, this is pretty close. Because I like Robert Woods more, and he's actually ranked higher than Woods, so I'm not sure how to handle this. So for that reason, I'm going to swipe left. I don't mind necessarily where he's ranked in terms of receivers, but I liked another receiver on that team more, and he's ranked lower. So for that reason, I'm going to swipe left on him.
So Fantasy Football Calculator has Cooks and Woods right next to each other.
Mm-hmm.
Wide receivers 15 and 16. They're both going at the end of the fourth round. So kind of like the whole Thielen Diggs debate. It's more of who you kind of prefer. Both are capable of getting 1,000 yards in that offense. Even with a guy like Cooper Kupp there as a third receiver, I feel like you're both still able to produce.
Coming off the injury.
I do feel like Brandon Cooks is the more explosive player, just in terms of just like getting in and out of routes. But Robert Woods has proven himself to be more of the better overall receiver, and I think he might be a better deep threat as well, even though I think Cooks is faster. So I'd probably agree with you.
My thing is just guys that are technicians like he is in the slot, I feel like the value is just so much higher. Similar to the way how good Juju is in the slot. Robert Woods kind of plays that same role in Los Angeles, and that offense is so high powered. I mean, we're talking about a team that's going to finish probably somewhere as a top 3, 4, 5 offense. So, give me the most productive receiver on that team, and this year I'm saying it's going to be Robert Woods.
Gotcha.
All right. Come on, where's the tight ends here?
They'll be there sooner or later, baby.
Rashad Penny, running back number 35 per ESPN.
I'm swiping left. Rashad Penny wasn't worth the first-round pick whenever the Seahawks took him.
Right.
I understand why people like him, especially in PPR leagues where he has a potential to be something really nice, especially in a Seahawks offense that doesn't feature a lot of good receiving weapons. I mean, we're looking at Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf as the top two Seahawks receivers. But I feel like Chris Carson is like centricated in a predominantly run offense, where he's supposed to get like the majority bulk of work in that offense. Sorry, I'm kind of like losing my head here. I don't see ample opportunity for Penny, even in PPR standpoints, even in the role he potentially has, to take over like he should. So I'm going to swipe left.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, Chris Carson seems to be the back to own there. And nobody runs the ball more than the Seahawks, so I think Rashad Penny could get a fair amount of touches. But Chris Carson ultimately, I think, is the better back. Like you said, Rashad Penny was not worth a first-round pick, and I think Chris Carson ends up taking over the majority of the carries there, leaving just a limited role for Rashad Penny. And I would also swipe left on that. Okay, so here's the tight end. Austin Hooper, tight end 12. I'll swipe right. I think he's right there, if not higher. Not too much else to say besides that, but I am a believer in Austin Hooper in that offense. Obviously, Matt Ryan puts up huge numbers in fantasy, especially. Julio Jones, Calvin Ridley. The door's going to be open for Austin Hooper. Should see a fair amount of targets, I think, especially in the red zone as well. So I think he's right on the cusp of being a top 10, so I'll swipe right.
Right, so he produced top 10 tight end numbers last year, and like I said, he had a really quiet season, and nobody really kind of like talked about him. But like with the disparity in talent from the top 3 tight ends to just the general field of tight ends, getting value at the tight end position like that, I feel like is super phenomenal. So I'll absolutely swipe right on that.
All right. There you go. Here's your tight end. Jimmy Graham comes in at tight end number 18 on ESPN sheet.
I'm going to be a little biased on here. When Graham signed with the Packers last year, I stuck my flag on the Jimmy Graham hill.
Yep.
And I died on it. Graham made me look terrible as a wannabe fantasy analyst. So I'm a little hesitant to give him the keys to the car for 2019 again. But you said he was tight end 18?
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like taking a flyer on him in the late rounds, especially being like the 18th ranked tight end. I don't mind that at all.
You can do a lot worse.
Definitely, yeah. As long as you have a somewhat capable starting tight end, a guy like Delaney Walker or Austin Hooper, like we just talked about. As long as you have one of those guys, I would absolutely feel comfortable having Jimmy Graham as a backup tight end. So simply for the value, I'll swipe right, but I'll be super cautious.
Okay, I'm with you. Okay. Oh, Josh Jacobs comes in as running back 16. I'll swipe right. I think he's probably right around that for me, early double digits. I really like him as a player. The Raiders spent a first-round pick on him, so obviously they're going to find a way to use him, whether it be in the run game. He also can catch the ball in the backfield. He's a three-down back. I know that who else is there? They have
Jalen Richard, I believe, is still there.
Jalen Richard's there. Is Washington still there?
He might be.
Either way, I mean, you spent a first-round pick on him. He's a capable three-down back. I feel like Oakland is going to give him the football, and I feel like he finishes right around there. So I would say he's probably running back, 12 to 15, and they have him at 16. So I'll swipe right on that.
So they have Doug Martin, Jalen Richard, and DeAndre Washington.
Doug Martin there as well. It doesn't change my opinion.
Yeah, it's a backfield full of names. But in terms of just actual production, I'm not concerned at all. Josh Jacobs is far and away the number one running back, and I would have to agree with you. I think they do find a way to get him going.
Yeah, and they did have Isaiah Crowell was on that roster. He tore his Achilles, so.
Yep.
But either way, all right. Moving on. Next, let's see who pops up next time for Donnie. Quarterback time. Nick Foles comes in at QB 29.
Man, I feel like there are so many other quarterbacks I would rather take than Nick Foles, and it's not a shot at him, but he's going to a new team, and quarterbacks who go to new teams 9 times out of 10 usually don't do very well. Just even not looking on a fantasy perspective, just an actual play perspective, typically don't fare very well. There's definitely 15 or 20 other quarterbacks I would rather have than Nick Foles. Granted, I'm sure if he pops off in Jacksonville, sure, that's a great value. But I mean, they're still going to be a predominantly run-heavy team with Leonard Fournette. They have D.D. Westbrook there. Who did they have another receiver in Jacksonville as well?
Keelan Cole.
Yeah, Keelan Cole's there. But I feel like there's one more name I'm missing, but that's kind of besides the point.
Marquise Lee's hurt.
Yeah, there's the point being there's no prominent weapon for Foles to kind of.
Oh, they signed Chris Conley as well, free agency.
Got you. There's no outstanding number one receiver that Foles can kind of just put the ball to if he needs to. There's not a whole bunch of playmakers on the Jaguars offense. Their offensive line, a lot of them are going to be returning from injury. I'm not going to say they're terrible, but they are injury prone. They were banged up last year. So it's a very much wait and see game. I know Jacksonville was kind of gracious with the contract they gave Nick Foles, but in my eyes, there's still a Leonard Fournette led team, and I'm going to have to swipe left.
Yeah. I mean, when you think about the QB 29, I mean, when you're getting down that low, he's not even going to be drafted. So it's more so, I guess, do you like him in that spot? And I mean, the starting quarterbacks he's in front of are Joe Flacco, Ryan Fitzpatrick, and whoever starts in Washington, and that's it.
Yeah, I would rather have the other names you just gave me.
Interesting. Okay.
Well, I would rather have Fitzpatrick for the first 3 games he does really well in, and then I'll stump him.
Yeah. Right. Okay. So this is probably about to get quarterback heavy on this. Well, nope, not yet. I got T.Y. Hilton coming in at wide receiver 12. We kind of just talked about him. I mean, I really like T.Y. Hilton as long as Luck's good to go. And banking on that, I will say I'll swipe right on that. He's a guy that can do a little bit of both. He can catch a ton of passes. He's also a big play threat. You get him the ball in space, and he can take it the distance. So, yeah, I'll swipe right on T.Y. Hilton being around that number 12 range.
Yeah, the upside is definitely there with Andrew Luck, like we talked about. Like you said, he does a little bit of everything. He's a really good route runner. He's a speedy guy. His hands are fairly good. There's not a whole lot to dislike about his situation. I just personally don't like him. There's always that one guy you have a fantasy vendetta for.
All right. Donnie. Emmanuel Sanders is wide receiver 39.
Swiping right on that. Emmanuel Sanders, sorry for cutting you off. Wide receiver 39. He's coming back off of, he tore his Achilles last year?
Yeah.
Correct? Okay. There's not a whole bunch of other receiving options in Denver. Courtland Sutton doesn't scream wide receiver 1 to me. Emmanuel Sanders, when healthy, produces extremely well. Joe Flacco, I think we can agree Flacco is a better quarterback than a few of the quarterbacks Sanders has had throwing him the ball the last couple of years.
Right.
Just the ability he has when healthy is right around that wide receiver 2 to wide receiver 3 range. He's way past his prime, obviously, but he's still a viable guy that can go on your fantasy roster. And I feel like when healthy in Denver's current offense, I would feel okay playing him as a wide receiver 3 or maybe even a flex spot depending on the matchups. So I'll definitely swipe right on that.
Yeah. And, I mean, it's a whole different story, but John Elway's ineptitude to get a quarterback has been well documented. Hopefully Flacco's at least a stopgap, and maybe they got their guy in Drew Lock for the future.
Yep.
Okay, so we know 2 of these last 3 are here quarterbacks. So let's see if I got one. I did not. So the last 2 are going to be quarterbacks, but I'm going to kick this off beforehand with Hayden Hurst, who comes in at tight end 33. We kind of already talked about that. The tight end situation there. Mark Andrews is there as well. Hayden Hurst is kind of the do-it-all tight end, where Mark Andrews is going to be the pass catcher. So from a fantasy perspective, what does that mean for Hayden Hurst? Tight end 33, though, I mean, that puts him behind guys like Jordan Thompson, Houston, Gerald Everett, Matt LaCosse in New England. Ben Watson's obviously back in New England. Jason Witten's in front of him. I don't know. I'm gonna swipe right on that, at least of where he is. Do I want him on my fantasy team? No. But, I mean, when you get that low on the board, he's not even being drafted right now, and I think it is a guy with at least some upside where the guys closely surrounding him don't offer that. So I'll swipe right on where he's ranked.
Definitely, yeah, and it's not like the Ravens are super shy to use their tight ends either.
Mm-hmm.
So he'll definitely get the snaps and the play counts. It's a matter of opportunity.
Yeah. Okay, so we know these last 2 are quarterbacks. We're each getting one of them. Let's see which one you get.
Mahomes. Knock on wood.
Deshaun Watson.
Deshaun Watson. Fantasy
Don't know where
football calculator.
Don't know where he's ranked on Fantasy Football Calculator. Tell you he's ESPN's QB2.
Gotcha. He's also Fantasy Football Calculator QB2. His ADP is the first pick in the 5th round. If Deshaun Watson is everything he can be, I love that. I love that still, especially compared to a guy like Patrick Mahomes, who's being taken in the 2nd round of fantasy drafts. I feel comfortable taking a quarterback in the 5th round, especially a guy of Watson's kind of abilities. We've seen it before. It's just banking on him staying healthy. But you can only do so much as a fantasy player, so I'll absolutely swipe right on that.
Okay. Sarge said, fun fact, a couple years ago I had my eyes on T.Y. Hilton and was going to draft him. Someone in front of me drafted T.J. Yeldon, and I got it mixed up, got mad, thought they took Hilton and drafted Golden Tate instead.
That's awesome.
Okay, so the last name on this list, I know who it is. Sam Darnold. QB 22. Honestly, man, this is a tough one. Obviously, they've upgraded their offense with Le'Veon Bell. You saw what their tight end there, Chris Herndon, did last year. And Sam Darnold was actually pretty decent for at least the last quarter of the season. You could even say second half. But Herndon is suspended for 4 games. I do like Robbie Anderson. They get Quincy Enunwa back. I'm not sure in what capacity, at least right away. Obviously, like I said, Le'Veon Bell catching passes out of the backfield. QB 22 puts him right behind Derek Carr, right in front of Jimmy Garoppolo. However, he's also in front of guys like Josh Allen and Matt Stafford. And we kind of talked about in the first episode that I like Josh Allen. I think that he adds a little bit with his legs, and that's where I think that he provides a little bit more fantasy value than a guy like Sam Darnold. So, although I don't think that Sam Darnold is terrible, and I do think that he will be improved this year with the addition of Le'Veon Bell, being able to just kind of dump the ball off to him and letting him do a lot of work. And like I said, I like Robbie Anderson. I do kind of like the weapons there, and I don't dislike Sam Darnold. But 22, like I said, ahead of Josh Allen, Matt Stafford, I'm going to have to swipe left on you, Sam Darnold.
Yeah, so a guy like Darnold, he showed a lot of really good pro veteran quarterback like attributes, capabilities, whatever you want to call them last year. But he still turned the ball over a lot. He's still a young guy who has a really long way to go. I know a lot of people are expecting him to take a big leap this year, especially with all the aforementioned guys that you had listed. But at least for the time being, I absolutely agree with you.
Yeah. Okay, so that wraps up Fantasy Football Tinder. Let us know what you thought of that segment. We can maybe do something similar. It'd be kind of tough to find a way to relate that to actual, season as we go on, waiver wire, stuff like that. But we're going to come up with new creative segments, try to at least each show. But that about wraps things up, Donnie. I don't know if you have anything else that you want to...
No, just, hit us up on Twitter at around the 412. Follow Smitty at Z23Smitty. Follow me at Donnie Druin. You can go and give us a like on Facebook, just around the 412. Smitty mentioned the Twitch stream. He can probably give you that one more time before we go. Follow us on Instagram, around the 412. We're everywhere. We are everywhere. Available on all platforms. If you can't listen to us for whatever reason, which obviously if you are, it's not a problem. But if we're not on a platform, hit us up. We'll be there.
Yeah. So anybody that's listening to this after, whether it be Spotify, the iTunes, iHeartRadio app, right on Spreaker, whatever it might be, whatever platform you're listening to it, we'd love to be able to interact with you. So the show is recorded live. We tweet out when we're going live and we do the live show, and then we make it a podcast from it. But if you would like to come chat with us and maybe ask us questions that we can answer right here, then and there, you can come over to Twitch, follow us at around the 412, twitch.tv/around the 412, hit that follow button. You can turn on notifications so you'll know every time we go live. And also, being that we are a Twitch affiliate, we are able to be subscribed to. So, for as low as $5 a month. Actually, if you have Amazon Prime, you can link it and get Twitch Prime for free. But if for as low as $5 a month, you can subscribe to us and support the channel and, hope that we keep getting better. The money would go directly back into the stream and improving. So, other than that, just thank you everybody for listening, joining in. Tweet at us, let us know what you want to see more of, less of. And until then, we'll talk to you. Bye-bye.
Yes.